Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Discovering Your Mission with Dr. Mordecai, the show where we explore purpose, leadership, transformation, and the individuals who are courageously shaping the future of our communities and our world. Today's conversation is not simply about artificial intelligence, it's about humanity. It's about leadership. It's about whether higher education is truly prepared for the future that is already arriving at our doorstep. Across the nation, conversations surrounding AI are accelerating rapidly. Industries are changing. Workforce expectations are evolving. Entire sectors of the economy are being disrupted in real time. And in the middle of it all sits a critical question. Will higher education lead this moment or react to it? Today's guest believes community colleges have the opportunity to become one of the most important transformational forces in America's future economy. Joining us today is Dr. Michael Torrence, veteran, nationally respected higher education leader, author, innovator, and president of Motlow State Community College. Dr. Torrence is the author of Beyond the Algorithm, Human-Centered Systems for AI Learning and Global Trust, and A Transformative Future with AI, with his third book scheduled for release later this summer. But what makes his voice especially important is that he is not discussing innovation theoretically, he is operationalizing it. In this conversation, we discuss everything from his journey from the United States Air Force into the community college presidency, to the future of AI in rural America, to why workforce development, student success, entrepreneurship, and AI can no longer exist in separate conversations. Most importantly, we discuss why technology should never replace human purpose, but instead help expand human potential. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to thank my sponsor, the EDU Ledger. Thank you for sponsoring Discovering Your Mission. EDU Ledger is a trusted national source covering higher education leadership, workforce transformation, innovation, and the future of learning. And now let's jump into this timely and important conversation with Dr. Michael Torrence. Greetings, everyone. Once again, thank you so much for joining me for Discovering Your Mission with Dr. Mordecai. Today's guest is a community college president. He is also a veteran. We're going to get into that. He is also an author of two books. He first had the Beyond the Algorithm, Human-Centered Systems for AI Learning and Global Trust. His second book, A Transformative Future with AI, and he has another book coming out this summer of 2026. We'll talk about that. We have with us the president of Motlow Community College, Dr. Michael Torrence. How are you doing, good sir?
Sir, I'm doing wonderful. I can't say thank you enough for having me on your show, and I'm looking forward to having a really robust conversation with you today.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the work that you've been doing. And first, thank you for your service. Really appreciate what you and so many, the sacrifices of so many to maintain the freedoms of our country. Let's kind of get into that. I mean, you don't often hear about someone who is a veteran who becomes a community college president. Kind of let's talk about this journey. I mean, first, what led you to the military, and then ultimately, what led you to becoming a community college president?
Sure. I mean, family was probably the chief motif in following the footsteps of cousins, aunts, uncles, and my grandfather also served as well. So those are some things that were kind of natural. Seeing pictures and photos of various family members living all over the world and coming back during Thanksgiving, Christmas, and summer break for me while I moved cinder block with my uncles for their masonry business, and just listening to them tell stories about being abroad, seeing the world, that the world was bigger than Richmond and Petersburg, Virginia. So that's really how the idea was even sparked. It wasn't the original path. I was only interested in going to school to pursue my student athlete pursuits of Division I basketball. But like most people, I would say sometimes your ego is outsized versus what your talent actually is, and you learn really fast that what you were excellent or elite in one place in the country, there are others across the country that meet the same criterion that you have, and it becomes down to not just talent, but it comes down to work. And so I was not mature enough at the time when I got the first opportunity to do so. But I learned quickly, and the United States Air Force was a great teacher, I'll put it that way, for me. So that when I got the second opportunity, which speaks a lot for the U.S. Air Force and their preparation of people, leadership, the principles that they teach around service, excellence in everything that we do, and it's service before self. So I learned quite a bit in terms of getting prepared to enter the quote-unquote civilian world as a student athlete the second time around, and made good the second time around.
That's awesome. Now, I've got to ask the question, do you still get a chance to play a little basketball?
My mind says one thing and my body says another. Because I don't want to say that what I do now is play basketball. I would like to say that I facilitate and orchestrate as a point guard.
Understood.
The young men and women that are playing with me that move a lot faster than I do.
Understood. That's a solid presidential narrative right there.
Right.
Now, community college. So you finish, how long did you serve in the Air Force?
So I did 4 years straight up, and then there's a 4-year commitment afterwards that you can be called back to service for reservist or other kinds of actions. So all in all, full throttle 4 years, and then I went to school, started as a freshman at South Dakota State University in 1996. Okay, and then community college president. I could, I've had so many guests that have been on the show, and they've talked about their journeys towards landing the presidency, or whether it is business and industry, starting a company. In this case, where did the light bulb go off and say, I'm done with the military, now it's time to be a college president? Yeah, well, the transition from the military to education began with some really superstar and stellar faculty members that I had as a freshman. Dr. David Nelson was my freshman freshman philosophy teacher. And then Dr. Barry Spriggs ended up being my freshman sociology professor. I had professors from Harvard, Cambridge, Oxford, and this is in Brookings, South Dakota. Who would have imagined that type of talent would choose to reside and go to a mid-sized land-grant institution focused on predominantly agriculture, but stick to the humanities. So as an English major, I had a wonderful cadre of faculty, Dr. John Taylor, and others. There are going to be people that if they see this and I don't mention them, they may let me hear about it. But all of you were phenomenal, and all of you helped shape me. So thanks. Yeah. And know that the impact of their commitment towards the advancement of your knowledge has now opened up the door for you to be able to serve so many countless lives. And so now let's make that shift. You've been serving as president of Motlow State there in Tennessee, doing great work for quite some time. You've also continued, which I love and believe deeply in as a columnist, you believe in scholarship. And so you've still been publishing, getting ready to come out with your third book. You've been writing and being a college president. And so at this stage of your presidency, what decision mostly clearly reflects your mission and one you would approach perhaps differently today? Yeah, I would say it would probably be the interest of making sure that community voices also have agency and representation within our ranks. There's a lot to be said about the topography that makes up the place in which a person resides in and or comes from. I do believe deeply that the land tells the story before any person in a community opens their mouths. So the idea that if you're in a small town rural area, for example, which makes up probably 10 of our 11 counties in the state of Tennessee, and then south of us, we have reciprocity with 3 adjoining counties in northern Alabama, Madison County being one of them, of Huntsville. So you have Space Force and NASA. So this alignment of what does the land look like? And you can really discern what the needs of the community are. And so starting off, I probably didn't do a good enough job, in my opinion, today, like looking back 9 graduations later, of making certain that it wasn't just the Nissans or the Volkswagens or the big box companies that had agents at our institution, but it was very important to also now for me to have the person who details cars. Randy, who's here in McMinnville, Tennessee, where I am today, in our Warren County location. The butcher, who had just started his shop over a year and a half ago. These are also very important voices that should have agency because they have needs as well, and we should do our best to meet those also.
You have a unique voice in this AI space because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in reading your works and some of the articles, this is going back to 2023 as I was preparing for our time today, you have found a way to communicate the power of artificial intelligence and its role in advancing economic mobility, but also its role in workforce development. And you don't usually hear AI and workforce development all in the same. There's a fear that's associated with AI when it comes to so many other spaces, especially as we think about career technical education pathways and folks feeling as though AI is going to actually replace them. But I don't feel like that's your message at all. What has driven your message, and where does that come from?
So I go all the way back to the DK1 headset. I like to tell the story that in 2010, I was introduced to the concept of various forms of compute. And so when people think about compute, oftentimes they just think about IT, or they think about safety and security, or they think about zeros and ones and coding. But for me, compute, obviously spatial, which is the VR, AR, MR, XR motif that we've seen become prevalent in teaching and learning, but also in workforce development. If you can save hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the greatest example I have, again, is a U.S. Air Force example. They took their pilot training next program, where they train F-16 fighters, your fighter pilots, and they took the program training from 13 months to 6 months. And the reason that they were able to scale down the training is that they use virtual reality and extended reality to train pilots. So it gave them a different type of immersive experience where they didn't put themselves in harm's way, making zero gravity turns or trying to turn the bird upside down. So slicing that down literally saved billions of dollars for domestic investment in protecting our country. And preparing those who are going to fight for us as necessary when the need arises. This has also given me the option and ideology where if we can do that with defense, what can we do with agriculture?
That's right.
What can we do with aquaculture? What types of advanced technologies through compute, like spatial, could then be transitioned to AI? And then also now we're hearing more and more about quantum. I'm very interested in getting coins and tokens from IBM and whomever would let me have them for 5 to 10 minutes a day so that I can run some processes and algorithms that I think would solve some things for us, or at least push towards a solution. So that's where the interest has started. It began with the DK1 headset. It moved into robotics. It moved into teaching myself how to code at a very basic level. I just know enough to be dangerous, as people like to say, but I assume that I'm very attuned to my partners and to the LEAs that we serve. And our goal is to make sure that we reach back and literally crawl and claw backwards to make sure that we're building competencies, goals, outcomes, and objectives, and curriculum and training motifs simultaneously. So when students come to us, they're already prepared for the types of classroom experience that we're going to have. The phrasing has often been, the student needs to be prepared for the institution that they're going to attend. Mm-hmm. I really think that that's kind of like saying we need to still trust and verify. Mm-hmm. It's been switched. We need to verify and trust, and the students don't need to be prepared for the institution. The institution better be prepared for the students that are coming.
Absolutely.
So that's been a goal. That the AI has been driven out of it being a part and parcel of all of that, all the way back to 2010. It was just not something we were talking about broadly as communities or as a marketplace in higher education for training of businesses and industry. So they are simultaneous to us. We are working to make sure that we, not vertical, but we make sure we go across the organization with workforce as an ideology that is combined and interwoven, linked like chain to student success and academic affairs. We have to be responsive in building that. We've coined it WAYS, workforce, augmented intelligence, student success, and entrepreneurship. And so that's going to be our umbrella, because as you mentioned, the next writings are not just about canonizing, because we're academicians in the field of higher education. It's about making sure that people understand that we are working with structure, and we have created frameworks to work out of our body of knowledge so that we can share it. And then, maybe it fits for other institutions or governments or organizations, and maybe it doesn't. But it's really important that over the course of this summer, our EVPs, that's been their charge for me in their evaluations. They need to come up with a name for how they do the work that they do so that we can not just be canonized, but we can archetype what we do and share it with everyone.
And just for the sake of those that are watching and listening to this, what does the acronym EDP stand for?
EVP, Executive Vice President. Executive Vice President.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarity. Thank you for that clarity. You're hitting the nail on a head that I don't think is talked about enough, and I just want to take a moment, if we could, to just, you hear artificial intelligence in many conversations that are at metropolitan-centered institutions, but you're talking about AI integration in rural spaces as well. Can you just unpack that a little bit? And I think the question I want to prompt you on is what do you encourage fellow community college presidents, fellow educators, fellow business and industry partners that are in rural spaces to be thinking about when we talk artificial intelligence? Because it's not what you're saying is it's not a them conversation, it's a us conversation.
It's correct. It is about us, and it is about us all. And the unpacking is to look at it as discovery. It is to look at it as exploratory. It is to look at it not as experimental, but experiential. And it's also to look at it as collaborative competition. Mm-hmm. And the competition being collaborative, I don't think it's new. It's just a phrasing that we're thrown together now. We are in support of everyone who is teaching innovation, learning, and training, our TILT model. We're also focusing on, if this isn't the place for those who are from small town rural Tennessee, we need to connect you to where the place for you is, and you can get what you need in terms of skill development or preparation for transfer or entrepreneurial skills, whatever it may be. The focus on small town rural is a backspin, and think about hip hop. Literally, it's a backspin because we want to make sure that people who have 100-acre farms or have generational wealth associated with land and property ownership, that they don't have to give that up because they can't pay their taxes. So leveraging AI as a platform and as a tool that is simply another layer to place upon, in between, or up under what is already existing in terms of skill sets, that is one of the whys. What's fascinating, if you think about folks who have access, but may not have the access that people would think is natural and or sexy, but they have access, they're already tinkerers. They're already high-level problem solvers because they can't just go down the street to a Piggly Wiggly. They can't just go down the street to a True Value Hardware. They can't just go down the street to Target to get their needs. Sometimes they have to patchwork things together to make sure they work. I believe that type of problem solving, critical thinking skills is innate and or really taught and learned in small town rural areas that gives them probably a leg up on looking at how do you take zeros and ones and solve the problems that may be more pervasive in larger metropolitan or micro metro areas.
This episode of Discovering Your Mission is brought to you by The EDU Ledger, a leading publication committed to advancing the conversations shaping today's higher education landscape. From innovative practices to policy insights and leadership perspectives, The EDU Ledger brings clarity to the issues surrounding educational opportunity that matter most. To stay informed and engaged, visit theeduledger.com. Now, let's get to today's conversation. Also, I'm hearing, and you confirm if I'm hearing this correctly, I'm hearing a sense of urgency that you're also noting for higher education, rural education entities, to say that you need to infuse AI into your learning experiences, because certainly not only is that where we're headed, it's what the society will demand in terms of the skill set of the learner to be able to integrate that in all aspects of life. Is that accurate?
That's correct. And our system office helps guide us to a direction with policy around it before we moved into the discussion of implementation. And I really want to make sure that I harp on that for anyone who's listening. Framing governance and policy is as important as keeping humans in the loop or people a part of the processes, because this is so pervasive that it's going to impact everything that we do. It is the next chalkboard. It is the next whiteboard. It is the next computer. It is the next wearable, not just a cell phone, but it's the Apple Watch. Everybody has one. What we will see proliferate our learning spaces in the next 5 to 10 years, I believe, are tools that provide everyone with the opportunity to have their own personalized IEPs. I mean, think about that. Every student walking through your door having their own individualized education plan, but it's supported by a tool that is like our lapel pins that, if enabled, listens, processes, provides context of what you went through over the course of the day. And now you can double down, triple down in engagement on top of going deeper into the content, deeper into knowledge sharing, deeper into comprehension that should make for better students, I hope, if used appropriately. I disagree with anyone who says that it's solely focused on and it's only for cheating. I think that whenever we have transformative platforms created, whether they be through compute or risk mitigation, whatever it may be, what happens is there's an opportunity for us to adjust the curriculum so it forces the learner to go even deeper into the content than we had to. So we have an opportunity to create deeper level learning questions and or exercises that force students to look beyond the context that we may be comfortable with. So the beauty of this is it's going to help us all climb a little bit further, a little bit higher.
Awesome. I've got to try to figure out how to just land this plane here. No pun intended. I know you were in the Air Force. I just thought about that because there's many places I want to go. Let me ask you this question. We all know, I was just having this conversation this morning. We all know from the federal government standpoint, we are heading into a space where we're talking about workforce Pell, we're talking about outcomes, we're talking about economic mobility, landing people jobs. My question to you is, as an AI scholar in higher education, especially, and a practitioner as well as a college president, if workforce outcomes are the true measure, how should then you would say that we, in the sector of higher education, how should we be redefining institutional success? Because I feel like before, this work has all been about how large and comprehensive is your institution. I feel like that's not where we're headed, especially in this AI age anymore.
Right. You know, the state of Tennessee has a performance funding metric where we, 12, 24, 36, 48, 60 credits, graduation, retention, the size of institutions on a fall-to-fall basis. I believe that these definitions will evolve. Our Tennessee Higher Education Commission, the Tennessee Board of Regents, we're in conversations now about what does that look like. If data, i.e. what we measure, matters, if data is going to be the precipice by which we provide resources or fiscal notes to higher education institutions, what should we be measuring? Is there an impact meter? If there was a way to have an impact meter, I would be all for that, because I think that the numbers of students in attendance, as lots of states are going to experience the decline in birth rate, so there will be smaller and smaller pots of students to pull from and draw from. And then four-year institutions are as collaboratively competitive as ever in their interest in making sure that they continue to bring swells of freshmen in year after year after year. So how do we make sure that we stay on the forefront? I think it's impact. And community colleges across the country, I believe that we are the workforce multiplier. There is nothing like us in any place in the world in terms of when we hear and connect with economic and community development or the Department of Labor, whether it's at a hyper-local level or if it's an entire region or simply at a state level, we're able to collaborate and create training, create skill opportunities to make sure that people are prepared for what is forthcoming, not only what is already there, but was also what is forthcoming. That's the separator for us. If we were to think about a military, since we started with that, we are not the entire command. We're simply the operators who are like the SEALs teams or the Green Berets. We are generalists and specialists all at the same time. And our ability to go in with small units and make an impact is seismic.
I love it. I love it. Okay, second and last question. Let me try to get this last one in before we talk about what's your mission statement as the team. I'm saying calling all the team. My audience already knows that's always our last question. But you are such an innovative mind. And I can't tell you how many people I've had conversations with throughout the years that they feel as though their spirit of innovation sometimes gets capped, that they wish that they could do so much more and take their institution so much further, but they feel as though they're fighting, whether it be traditions, whether it be fear, whether it be folks that don't want to move that fast. But you have figured out how to do this at scale and to do this as a college president. What advice do you have for those that are hearing this, being inspired by this and saying, but how do I pull off such levels of integration of AI and innovation at my particular institutions? What advice do you have for these people?
So I always believe that it's very important, as I mentioned before, this is about people. And so you have to respect and honor the past, right? We have to, especially if you're a new president, you're going to spend the first 3 to 5 years just making sure people trust you. And that in itself is a need to recognize that the past doesn't pick your path, but your path should be allowed its choice through your purpose. And if you choose your path based on your purpose, your path will pick your people. And when you get your people, you'll set precedents. And so I know that's a philosophical way, but you got to bear with me. I'm an English major. It's how I think. It's how I'm wired. So that this concept of the past, the path, the purpose, back to the path, and the path picking the people, and then you're able to set precedents. It took a while to get here, but once we've gotten here, we were able to move as fast as a flywheel after you get it moving. It just starts to spin and spin and spin. And Dr. Tony Milliken and I, who's here, we talk about that quite often, the flywheel concept. I am someone who had to learn patience, and I still have to learn patience every day. And I don't know that I do a great job practicing it. But as you've noticed and noted, this is as much about health of communities, and it's not situational. I see it every state I go in. I see every state I drive through, that the health of institutions is the health of the community, which is the health of the business and industry within the state, which translates into being the health of the economy within the state. And with all of those things being healthy, who wants to operate at 50%? I don't. Who wants to operate at 95%? I really don't, because I know what it means and how it feels to operate at 100. So that's really difficult because not everybody wakes up every morning without the bones aching and cracking, or hadn't taken a lick the day before, not meeting what they were trying to get accomplished. So the idea that I want to make sure that I express is that be patient enough, but be purposeful in the people that you choose on the path, because with the right people, your patience wanes, it goes away, because they'll be coming to you with, we finished this, are you ready for the next thing? And that's where you want to get. So I hope that expression resonates with folks.
I'm sure it will, my friend. We're at the time of where I ask the last question of our guests. As you know, the show is called Discovering Your Mission, where we love to give our guests an opportunity to share with us what is their personal mission statement and why. So I would love to give you that opportunity to share that with us at this time.
Sure. I mean, I've been working in higher education going on 25, 30 years, and it has always been this question. There have been variations, but how does the vertical integration of technology improve the human condition and advance economic and workforce opportunities for all involved? This is my question. I literally wake up every morning with the same question. And because the dynamicism of community colleges and higher education, we touch everything. I have been able to quench that thirst on a day-to-day basis by trying to solve for X with that question. The beauty of it is that it moves. At some points, it's a focus on healthcare. At some points, it's a focus on advanced manufacturing and robotics. At some points, it's a focus on the spirits industry or culinary. Today, a lot of the focus is on compute and AI and quantum and spatial. But the opportunity to tap into the various things like former philosophers, Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, the concept of there isn't a same spot within the river that we walk day to day that we put our feet in when we're moving towards helping other people. So I believe I believe that's my personal mission. It makes me happy. I mean, it makes me smile. I'm driven by that. That's what drives me to see the building of people, the development of others' selves. That's what drives me every day.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Michael Torrance, President, Motlow State Community College, also author, I would say about to be three-time author. Look out for his new book coming out this summer in 2026, but be sure to also take a look, and I'll be sure to put his information to the purchase of those books in the bio information. And certainly, thank you so much for your service to this country. I appreciate your time, good sir.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Have a great day.
You too. What a powerful conversation with Dr. Michael Torrance. This discussion reminded me that the future of higher education is no longer a distant conversation. It is here, my friends, and institutions across this country are now being challenged to decide whether they will simply preserve tradition or courageously evolve to meet the realities of the workforce, the future workforce, future learners, and future communities and their families. There were several moments from this conversation that stood out to me, but let me leave you with three major key takeaways. First, artificial intelligence is not ultimately about machines. It is about people. Dr. Torrance repeatedly emphasized that AI should not diminish humanity. It should strengthen opportunity, deepen learning, improve access, expand economic mobility. That framing matters tremendously in a moment where so many people are leading with fear instead of vision. Secondly, he stated that community colleges may very well become the most important workforce institutions in America over the next decade. His description of community colleges as workforce multipliers was incredibly powerful. The ability for our institutions to rapidly adapt, collaborate with industry, respond to community needs, and prepare learners for emerging economic realities is one of the greatest strengths our sector and community colleges possess. And third, one of the most transformational lines from today's conversation was this: the institution must be prepared for the students who are coming. That statement alone should challenge every leader listening to this episode, because the future learner will expect personalization, flexibility. They will expect technological integration. They will expect career relevance, human connection, and institutions that fail to evolve around those realities risk becoming disconnected from the very communities they were created to serve. But perhaps this moment that resonated with me the most was what Dr. Torrance shared in his reflection of purpose. He shared that when your purpose becomes clear, your path eventually begins to pick your people. And once the right people begin aligning around a shared vision, momentum starts to build like a flywheel. I think many leaders needed to hear that today, because progress does not happen always overnight. Transformation does, in fact, take patience. Vision will require endurance. And sometimes the greatest innovations begin quietly, long before the world fully recognizes what is being built. So wherever you are in your journey right now, whether you are leading an institution, building a business, developing a vision, navigating uncertainty, or simply trying to discover your next chapter, continue moving forward with purpose, because purpose has a way of creating momentum long before the results become visible. I want to once again thank our sponsor, the EDU Ledger, for supporting Discovering Your Mission and helping amplify conversations that matter across higher education and leadership. And as always, thank you for joining us. Be sure to subscribe, share this episode with others, and continue following my work, our work together. For more podcasts, leadership content, articles, resources, visit itsdrmordecai.com. And until next time, continue discovering your mission.